Daddy, the girl in the trunk is asking you to let her out.
The words what our 4-year-old daughter said during a family drive. I didn't miss my husband steeled his face at that moment. However, whether he intended to play dumb or not, he, whose face was still pale, looked at our daughter through the rearview mirror with a frightened expression.
What a scary thing to say. You shouldn't tell such lies.
I glared sharply at him from the passenger seat. Then, should we pull over at the rest area? It had been 5 years since we got married, and I had been diligently supporting him who'd been busy with work. However, the truth was about to be exposed by my daughter's mysterious power. I, Charlotte Clark, married my husband Freddie when I was 27 years old, and he is 4 years older than me. The following year, our daughter Sophia was born, and she has been growing up healthy and lively, and she's turned 4 years old. Our family was living busy yet happy days.
How about going to the zoo next Sunday?
Huh? Yay! I want to see the giraffes.
I couldn't help but smile at their cheerful conversation. My husband has always been kind since we were dating, and that hasn't changed since we got married and our daughter was born. On his days off, he willingly engages in family activities and is an impeccable father. I'm so glad I ended up with this man. I was indulging in happiness while watching my husband and daughter playing together. Little did I know that these peaceful days were about to come to an end. Huh? You're being transferred to a different department?
Yeah, it's company policy. They want me to gain experience in various places.
One day, as soon as Freddie came home, he sighed wearily with a dejected look on his face. Unfortunately, it seemed he was being transferred to the busiest department, which meant he might not be able to spend much time with us.
Daddy, are you not going to play with me anymore?
I'll do my best to spend as much time with you as possible, Sophia. Let's go to the zoo again sometime.
My husband wore a regretful expression as he gently stroked our anxious daughter's head. Watching the two of them, I felt a tightness in my chest, overwhelmed with emotions. It seems his transfer doesn't involve changes in salary or relocation, but it's still big news for our family. Just the thought of having less family time together made me feel lonely. However, the one feeling the most vulnerable is surely Freddie, adjusting to his new environment. Please don't push yourself too hard. I knew he had a tendency to immerse himself deeply in things. That's why I worried about him overdoing it, but unfortunately, my concerns turned out to be justified. Initially, Freddie managed to secure time for family and rest despite being busy. However, about a month later, his time at home suddenly decreased dramatically. It seems he's working overtime, often coming home late at night after our daughter has already gone to bed. He's been going out for drinks with his clients more often, and to top it off, he started going to work even on his days off. And there was another concern I had about him. Hey, can you take a day off next Sunday? Sophia misses you, and you've been working too hard lately.
Huh, who do you think I'm working so hard for? So, should I just turn down client meetings and risk getting fired?
I didn't mean it like that. I'm just worried about you.
That's none of your business. Anyway, make sure you have money ready for next week's drinking party.
Seemingly overwhelmed by his workload, my husband had become irritable all the time and started taking out his frustrations on me more frequently. Furthermore, he was spending extravagantly, claiming it was necessary for entertaining clients, and this was starting to impact our living expenses. Because I know his previous kindness, I'm more worried than frustrated about his current tense demeanor. I really need to find a way to get him to take a break, or he's going to collapse from overwork. After half a year had passed since the transfer, my husband had reached a point where he was coming home mostly just to sleep. In addition, Sophia, feeling lonely from not being able to see him, began to wear a sad expression more often. I knew things couldn't go on like this, so I was trying to figure out a way for him to take a break. However, as if to thwart my efforts, more bad things kept happening. My mother, who had been suffering from an illness for several years, suddenly passed away in the hospital. No, Mom. My father had passed away when I was young, and my mother was my only parent. I couldn't even have a proper conversation with her before she passed away, and when I heard the news at home, I was so shocked that I couldn't move for a while. However, Freddie's response to me was unbelievably cold.
Hey, do I have to go to that funeral too?
His indifferent attitude shocked me, and I widened my eyes in disbelief. For my husband, the relationship with my mother-in-law may have been somewhat distant, but she was still family. Despite this, he didn't show any sadness or comfort me. Instead, he just complained about having to attend the funeral. What are you saying? Of course you have to. It's a family funeral.
Don't get mad at me. Ugh, why does this have to happen now? I had plans too.
Despite my reprimand, Freddie showed no signs of remorse, and I was left shocked. In the past, he would have surely comforted me, perhaps rubbing my back and grieving with me together. But now, as he sighed in dissatisfaction, he seemed nothing like the person I once promised a future with. Naturally, he didn't help with any preparations for my mother's funeral, and I arranged everything alone. On the day of the service, my husband remained silent sullenly.
It's over now, right? I'm heading home first.
After the funeral ended, Freddie didn't help with any cleanup and quickly went home. I was initially confused by his first reactions, but by then, I had lost the energy to be angry. I was simply bewildered and disappointed in him. No matter how busy and stressed from work he may be, his behavior at the funeral is unacceptable. When did my husband become such a cold person?
Mom, Sophia will help you.
Despite feeling frustrated with him, I finished cleaning up with my daughter by my side. Before heading home, I decided to stop by my parents' house for a short while. It wasn't far from our home, and I wanted to reminisce about my mother after saying goodbye. Although I did it as my heart dictated, the decision wasn't wrong. When I arrived at my parents' house with a heavy heart, I discovered something shocking.
Mom, wait a moment.
Huh? Sophia? As soon as we arrived at my parents' house, my daughter's expression suddenly changed, and she dashed straight into the back room. I had taken her to visit my mother's place several times before, but I had never seen her behave like this. Hurrying to follow her, I found Sophia opening the second drawer from the bottom of the dresser as if she was drawn to it by something.
Mom, Grandma wants you to have this.
As I looked at an old hand mirror which my daughter was holding, I couldn't help but catch my breath. The mirror had always been precious to my mother. But she had treasured it so much that even I rarely saw her use it, and I didn't even know where she kept it. Of course, there's no way Sophia could have known about the existence of this hand mirror. What? How did you know it was here? And what do you mean Grandma wanted me to have it?
When Grandma was sleeping earlier, she told me that Mom was sad and asked me to give this to you.
I couldn't hide my surprise that she answered innocently. I didn't think it was a coincidence, so I asked her some questions. I asked about tomorrow's dinner menu, what I was thinking about, and even thoughts I had during the funeral, all things she couldn't possibly know. Yet, to my surprise, she accurately answered every question. I'm not sure how long she has had it, but it seems like my daughter has a mysterious ability to know what people are thinking. Wow, that's amazing, Sophia. You know everything. I stroked her head, feeling bewildered. I had always thought that the idea of mysterious abilities was just something from stories, but I never imagined she actually had such a power. While I was surprised, she put her hand on her hip and showed a proud look on her face.
That's right. Sophia knows about Dad too.
What do you mean? And what she told me was incredibly unbelievable and unforgivable. And then, a few weeks after my mother's funeral. By the way, I'm visiting my friend with Sophia next Sunday. In the morning, when I told Freddie, who was about to leave for work, he abruptly stopped and frowned, looking genuinely troubled.
Really? Oh no, I'm off that day, that's too bad.
Feeling the artificiality in his voice, I quietly let out a smile so as not to give myself away. Now that I knew the truth, there was no love left for Freddie inside me. On that Sunday, I left home with Sophia and then killed about an hour and returned home.
Dad, he's over there.
Then, I looked where she pointed and headed towards the garage with the shutter still down. After taking a deep breath, I lightly knocked on the shutter. Freddie, I know you're in there. Open it.
Huh? Charlotte, I thought you and Sophia had plans.
It's cancelled. If you're going somewhere, we want to come with you. He sounded flustered and hesitant to open the shutter. Honestly, I had a pretty good idea of what was going on inside at that moment, but I decided to stay quiet and just observe. Sophia wants to go for a drive too. Unable to resist her hopeful voice, he had no choice but to agree. A few minutes later, Freddie reluctantly opened the garage and started our drive together. Sitting in the passenger seat, I looked at Freddie, who was driving, in profile, and I solidified my final decision. The marriage life with Freddie had truly been enjoyable and happy, but I also firmly understood that those days would never come back. Hey, did you know? Sophia has a special power. I finally brought it up as we merged onto the highway. My husband furrowed his brows in confusion at the sudden confession.
Huh? What's that supposed to mean? That's a silly joke.
He laughed dismissively.
Daddy, the girl in the trunk is asking you to let her out.
From the back seat, our daughter confidently raised her voice. I didn't miss my husband steeled his face at that moment. However, whether he intended to play dumb or not, he, whose face was still pale, looked at our daughter through the rearview mirror with a frightened expression. Husband, what a scary thing to say. You shouldn't tell such lies.
But it's true.
Then, should we pull over at the rest area? When I suggested it on behalf of our daughter who was hanging head down, Freddie immediately looked at me with a startled expression.
Huh? We don't need to do that. It's just a kid's joke.
Sophia has a mysterious power, you know. Besides, it's hot today, so it could be dangerous if someone's really in there. He must have thought what I said made sense. After Freddie flinched and stiffened, he headed towards the rest area with a contorted expression on his face. Upon arrival, we left our daughter in the air-conditioned car and went outside to check the trunk.
I don't think there's anything in there.
Come on, quickly. When I said a word to my husband, who had begun to hesitate at this point, he seemed to realize he couldn't escape anymore, and nervously opened the trunk, breaking into a cold sweat. And in the next moment, someone jumped out from there. I knew you were cheating. That was a young woman whose face flushed red from the heat. Yes, it turned out that while Sophie and I were out, Freddie had been cheating with her at home. Probably just as they were about to go for a drive, we came back unexpectedly, so he had no choice but to hide her there. He shook his head nervously at the woman, who was taken away suddenly and seemed unable to grasp the situation.
No, it's not like that. She is a colleague from work. We were just working together.
Wow, at the new department, you're doing a job getting into a trunk? I chuckled at the blatant and ridiculous lie, while standing firm and taking a piece of copy paper from my bag. And what is this? It says, "Let's go on a drive date on Sunday." As the woman and Freddie looked at the paper, they turned pale. That was no surprise, as their lovey-dovey email exchanges were printed on it. Thanks to Sophia, I found out everything. On the day of my mother's funeral, at my parents' house, my daughter confided in me.
Daddy has been spending a lot of time with Scarlett lately. I'm sad because Scarlett is taking Daddy away from me.
Just having witnessed her power, what she said made me suspicious. So, I decided to investigate my husband for a while after that. And sure enough, I found undeniable evidence of his affair on his phone. So, I told you that fake plan because I wanted to punish you. It's a shame it turned into this kind of drive.
Hey, it's unfair to look through my phone without permission.
Freddie protested, shaking his body in response to my sarcastic words. His absurd remark unintentionally made me burst into laughter. I had thought he was just getting too busy to come home, but most likely during that time, he was with his affair partner, Scarlett. He probably used the expenses repeatedly for dates with her. Despite all the complaints and taking it out on me, who exactly is being unfair here? By the way, I've been recording everything since earlier. Recalling all the numerous grievances, I took out my phone from my breast pocket. Actually, I had expected this would happen, so I secretly pressed the record button on my phone to capture evidence since we got into the car. And the evidence I've gathered isn't just messages and this video. I didn't tell you, but I also had hidden cameras in the house and garage. And Scarlett, I know everything about you too. Under my successive attacks, they both turned white as sheets. I was furious with Freddie, but of course, I couldn't forgive Scarlett either. So, I thoroughly investigated my husband and managed to identify her. She was a 25-year-old new employee who had become his colleague in a new department. From reading the messages, it seemed she was aware of my existence yet still engaged in the affair, so she's equally guilty.
Sorry, Charlotte.
He probably didn't expect to be cornered this much so perfectly. Feeling disdain for Freddie as he whimpered and pleaded in a voice I had never heard before, I glared at both of them with all my anger. I won't forgive either of you. Prepare yourselves for alimony. Upon hearing my firm words, perhaps realizing their fate, both of them collapsed to their knees. Afterwards, I divorced Freddie. The fact that I had recorded the scene and gathered all the evidence paid off, and they were ordered to pay $300,000 in compensation. I was also able to claim $500 a month in child support from my husband. Their misfortune didn't end there. I heard that their affair spread throughout the entire company since they were working in the same department, which made things awkward, and eventually they broke up. They were both looked at with disapproval by their colleagues, and eventually, they had no choice but to resign. Now, it seems they ended up in the street with the burden of the compensation payments. Meanwhile, I am now enjoying peaceful days with Sophia. I'll continue to give lots of love to Sophia, who has a wonderful power, so that she can live happily in the future.
Not that again from morning. The smell is unbearable. I can't take it anymore. Don't come near me. The smell is even getting on me.
My husband was angry as usual, so I went over to my mother-in-law and asked what had happened, and sure enough, the reason for his anger was about Catherine wetting herself and the smell it caused. Today, Robert has been in a bad mood since the morning and raising his voice louder than usual. Catherine and I looked at each other and laughed before Robert, who was angry with his face red.
What's so funny?
You've been upset about something since earlier, but who exactly are you talking about?
Huh? I'm talking about. Because of my mother. She wets herself.
At that moment, my mother-in-law turned her body towards Robert.
It's all right now, Sherry.
She said with a gentle smile and a voice full of kindness and affection. Robert, feeling uneasy at his mother's expression and words, momentarily stiffened and muttered, "Huh," with a surprised look on his face. I took out a crumpled small paper bag from my pocket and slammed it onto the table.
What's this?
Can't you tell just by looking? It's something you should know very well. Robert, clearly unable to hide his irritation at my provocative tone, cautiously picked up the crumpled paper bag that had been slammed onto the table. It was a paper bag which had a prescription with Robert's name on it, for the exact same medication that my mother-in-law had been prescribed. She had found it by chance while alone at home, when she opened the kitchen trash can to throw away the trash in her room. Brown Beauty Salon. I was entrusted with running this shop because my husband Robert's mother retired from being a hairdresser 15 years ago. I met my husband Robert through a mutual acquaintance from beauty school, and after dating for a year, we got married. During our courtship, I had heard about his mother managing her own beauty salon, and since I had been a hairstylist myself since my 20s, I was interested in it. After getting married, I resigned from the salon where I had been working and began helping out at Robert's family beauty salon. We spent busy yet fulfilling days together with Robert, his parents, and our daughter Wendy, who was just 5 years old at the time. However, not everything in marriage goes smoothly, and transitioning from a dating relationship to being married can reveal new aspects of each other. For instance, Robert was very immature. I knew he was competitive from our time dating, but after marriage, I've also noticed his childish traits and even discovered he secretly developed a hobby for gambling at casinos. The list could go on if I started counting. He doesn't help with household chores or childcare at all. Whenever he has free time, he clenches the allowance I give him and heads straight to the casino. My mother-in-law's physical decline has become noticeable since she retired from hairdressing, and it's frustrating that all the caregiving falls on me and my daughter. Yet, the truth is, despite everything, I can't bring myself to dislike him completely. Every day, as I juggled helping out at the beauty salon with managing all the household chores and childcare, my mother-in-law watched me closely. She cherished me dearly, and I gradually started to see her as my own mother.
But seriously, you really do work hard, don't you? Taking care of Mom and looking after our daughter.
Do I have a choice? How dare you say that when you don't do house chores and don't take care of our daughter and not even your own mother?
Well, I do appreciate it. You know.
Although Robert is someone I can't bring myself to hate, it gets on my nerves that he always says one word too many things, and I know there's no point in telling him that. In place of Robert, who doesn't help with anything, my father-in-law used to lend a hand, but he passed away about 10 years ago. Since then, my mother-in-law's physical decline has been noticeable, and she has also begun to show signs of mild forgetfulness. I was concerned, so I decided to take my mother-in-law to her regular hospital for a checkup. The doctor diagnosed her with mild dementia as a possible cause of her forgetfulness, and told me that further caregiving would be needed. My mother-in-law suggested moving into a facility using her own pension, but considering all the times she had helped with household chores and childcare when I needed it, I proposed home care as a gesture of gratitude. At first, she declined, worried she might end up being a burden until the end. However, after explaining that it was nothing compared to the help she had given us during difficult times, she seemed to understand and agreed to opt for home care. I talked to Robert about caring for his mother at home, but as expected, he just complained and didn't want to be involved in her care. However, with support from Wendy, who happened to be visiting home after getting married and moving out, he reluctantly agreed to the home care plan.
If we're doing this, Sherry, make sure you take good care of her. I'm busy with a lot of things, and I can't be bothered with caregiving.
I thought to myself that his so-called busyness was probably just trips to the casino, but I chose not to say it out loud. Instead, I focused on being grateful that he had at least agreed to the home care arrangement. I understand. I never expected anything from you in the first place. I'll take care of her without needing to be reminded. With situations like this, it's now the three of us, Robert, my mother-in-law, and me, living together. We manage the beauty salon and, with occasional help from Wendy, who lives nearby, we lead busy but fulfilling lives. Today, as well, I glanced sideways at Robert heading to the casino while I chatted with salon clients, cutting their hair. The days continue with me managing the salon and caring for my mother-in-law. One day, when Wendy, who is a full-time homemaker, brought her daughter Jessica to help out at the salon, I confided in her about some recent concerns I had regarding the salon during lunch break. In between work, I let Jessica play with the children at home and in the neighborhood to allow myself to focus on work.
What exactly are you worried about with the shop? Is it that the number of customers has been decreasing?
No, actually, we have regular customers who have been coming since your grandmother's time, and some of my own clients still come, so business is quite steady. It's not about that.
Then what is it?
After I hesitated to voice my concerns despite bringing them up, Wendy grew impatient and pressed me further. Reluctantly, I told her my concerns, and she seemed greatly relieved to hear that, suggesting she had been quite concerned about me. Wendy immediately suggested a solution to my problem, promising to implement it and update me on the results later. She asked me to trust her to handle the matter so that I wouldn't worry unnecessarily, then returned to work ahead of me. She said to trust her, but I wonder if everything will really be okay. Though I was worried, I realized there was little else I could do myself, so I decided to wait for the outcome. However, there was another worry I hadn't discussed with Wendy, and it was Catherine's bathroom situation. When Catherine needs to use the toilet, I've set it up so that I receive notifications on my phone. However, due to her age and declining physical function, there have been more instances where she doesn't make it to the toilet in time. Especially when she's relaxing at home, Catherine sometimes lets her guard down, leading to frequent accidents where she wets the sofa. At her request, we started using adult diapers to manage this issue, and her regular doctor prescribed medication to help prevent urinary leakage. However, even after starting to use adult diapers, it seemed the sofa retained an odor. Whenever Robert returned from the casino and sat on the sofa, he started yelling at Catherine about it.
Mom, seriously, can't you do something about it? The sofa smells awful, and why am I giving you diapers and medicine I don't even want to buy?
Robert, I'm really sorry. But I'm not doing this on purpose, you know. And Sherry should be cleaning the sofa.
That's it. It's the smell from when Mom has accidents. Seriously, get it together. I can't even relax when I want to.
Robert, whether he won at the casino or not, always ended up yelling at his mother as soon as he saw her. Lately, it's become a daily routine for me to intervene and try to reason with him when I catch him shouting during breaks at work. Can you please cut it out? She is trying her best not to inconvenience anyone. Stop yelling at her without even helping with the housework. When I said this, Robert usually just left again in a bad mood with his wallet and cigarettes without saying anything. It's becoming increasingly stressful for me as all the burden seems to fall on my shoulders. During work, I tried my best not to show customers that I'm stressed, but at home, especially when cooking or whenever I'm alone, I couldn't help but sigh.
Sherry, it's because of me, isn't it? I hear you sighing. I'm always causing trouble. I'm sorry.
I mean, no, it's not your fault at all, mother-in-law. You're trying your best, and the one at fault is him.
I'm sorry about Robert's behavior. Sherry, I have something to discuss with you. Is now a good time?
While I was making sarcastic remarks about Robert, Catherine shared something with me. A week passed since my mother-in-law approached me with her concerns. It was the day the salon was closed for the regular day off, so I was busy from the morning by hanging up the laundry that had piled up and preparing for meals. Amidst all this, I witnessed Robert shouting angrily at my mother-in-law early in the morning.
Not that again for morning. The smell is unbearable. I can't take it anymore. Don't come near me. The smell is even getting on me.
My husband was angry as usual, so I went over to my mother-in-law and asked what had happened, and sure enough, the reason for his anger was about Catherine wetting herself and the smell it caused. Today, Robert has been in a bad mood since the morning and raising his voice louder than usual. Catherine and I looked at each other and laughed before Robert, who was angry with his face red.
What's so funny?
You've been upset about something since earlier, but who exactly are you talking about?
Huh? I'm talking about. Because of my mother. She wets herself.
At that moment, my mother-in-law turned her body towards Robert.
It's all right now, Sherry.
She said with a gentle smile and a voice full of kindness and affection. Robert, feeling uneasy at his mother's expression and words, momentarily stiffened and muttered, "Huh," with a surprised look on his face. I took out a crumpled small paper bag from my pocket and slammed it onto the table.
What's this?
Can't you tell just by looking? It's something you should know very well. Robert, clearly unable to hide his irritation at my provocative tone, cautiously picked up the crumpled paper bag that had been slammed onto the table. It was a paper bag which had a prescription with Robert's name on it, for the exact same medication that my mother-in-law had been prescribed. She had found it by chance while alone at home, when she opened the kitchen trash can to throw away the trash in her room. At first, she thought it was hers because it was a similar paper bag. When she saw the name on the prescription, she instinctively put it in her pocket, thinking it might be useful someday.
I never imagined you were also taking the same medication as me.
Robert and I are both in our late 60s now. Given our age, it's not unusual to be taking such medication regularly. Still, I think the reason he hid it was probably because he had been nagging at his mother, and now he couldn't bring himself to admit that he was taking the same medication.
At your age, there's nothing to be ashamed of in taking medication. It's actually important to maintain your lifestyle. You can still manage things if you take the right precautions.
She, drawing from her own experience, reassured that taking medication could prevent issues, and emphasized that there was nothing to be ashamed of.
But I'm not as old as Mom yet. I haven't had accidents like that.
Sure, she's old, but she's been using the latest adult diapers lately. So, there's no more accidents happening.
Still, there's no guarantee, right?
No. You wouldn't know since you're always at the casino, but the latest adult diapers have advanced, and thanks to that, your mom can wear them comfortably without worries. Robert seemed overwhelmed by my impassioned speech. He collapsed to his knees, burying his face in the ground, repeatedly apologizing to my mother-in-law. I gently smiled at Robert, who finally understood, and handed him the men's adult diaper I had bought in advance when I learned about the medication bag from my mother-in-law. Here, I bought this for you. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Let's take preventive measures together, okay?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Robert, unexpectedly teary-eyed, accepted the adult diaper. He then insisted on washing the soiled sofa cover himself, removing it and hand-washing it promptly. I thought all our troubles were resolved, but new worries often come when least expected. Just as I thought everything had settled down, suddenly a forceful knocking echoed through the living room from the front door. When I checked the monitor attached to the intercom, there was Wendy, looking flustered. As soon as I let Wendy into my home, she grabbed my shoulder and exclaimed, "I need you to see something." Her eyes widened with urgency. As for what she wanted me to see, it was regarding a problem I had previously consulted Wendy about. Recently, I had been troubled by discrepancies in the cash register sales figures at the store, no matter how much I checked. If it had been just a few cents or $1, I might have accidentally given customers too much change. So I just need to be more careful when giving change in the future. However, what made me suspicious was that the discrepancies amounted to more than $100. At Wendy's suggestion, we discreetly installed small hidden cameras purchased online inside and around the cash register. It turned out Wendy was panicked because she had identified the source of the discrepancies in the register. When we connected the computer to check the footage, we spotted a person making suspicious movements. It was Robert. When we tried to review the footage, Robert, with a pale face, tried to sneak away like a character from an old comedy film, but Wendy stopped him.
Where are you going? Dad, please check it with us.
We brought Robert back, and upon rechecking the footage, it clearly showed Robert taking money from the cash register when the store was empty during lunch break.
Dad, what on earth is going on here?
How could you do this? Stealing money from the register. You didn't use that money for.
I had no choice. Pocket money wasn't enough for gambling and it ran out too quickly. I'm sorry. I was planning to pay it back once my pension came in.
Although he reluctantly apologizes for giving in to greed, his attitude clearly showed he didn't fully understand the seriousness of the situation. After he apologized, he suddenly became defiant and said he was hungry. The sound of my patience finally snapping echoed clearly in my head at those words. Enough is enough. I've been fed up with your attitude since we got married. always gambling and doing nothing at home. I've had enough. My long-standing dissatisfaction and anger towards Robert exploded, and I relentlessly showered him with insults unlike anything I had ever said in my life. Robert, visibly shocked by my outburst, as well as Wendy and even my mother-in-law, who had only ever seen my kind side, watched the scene with mouths agape in surprise. After venting my anger at Robert with a barrage of insults until I felt somewhat relieved, I slumped into a chair, feeling slightly out of breath. Robert desperately apologized, sensing a threat to his life, but it was already too late. By this point, I've already made my mind up. Catherine, can I?
Yes, you've done enough. You don't have to endure anymore.
Encouraged by her words, I calmly but coldly told Robert, I'm divorcing you. I've had enough, I'm tired. I made it clear that I saw no future in living with Robert any longer.
Wait, please. I'm begging you. Wendy. Mom. Please talk to Sherry. Tell her we shouldn't divorce.
Robert, in a state of panic and desperation, miserably sought help from Wendy and his mother, but naturally, neither of them supported him. They ignored him as if they couldn't hear his voice at all.
It's ridiculous to think someone would help after doing something like that. Right, Grandma?
You're right. It's the natural order of things that wrongdoers face consequences. There's nothing we can do about this.
He didn't have anyone on his side, but he now faced the harsh reality that no one was actually on his side, so he left the house crying out loud. Afterward, Robert, who had left, came back many times to ask for reconciliation, saying things like "let's get back together" and "I'll help with chores." However, each time, I dismissed him as if brushing away garbage, and it seemed Wendy and my mother-in-law didn't engage with him either. If Robert's behavior hadn't become this bad, I would have simply filed for divorce and parted ways. However, after I told him it was over, he kept coming back, begging for forgiveness repeatedly, causing trouble for the neighbors and inconveniencing the customers who visited the salon. Just as I was reaching my breaking point again, Wendy mentioned that she had arranged for a lawyer to come, introduced by her acquaintance. Later, I told the lawyer, who was introduced to me, the entire history, and he said he would make Robert sign the divorce papers and promise never to approach me or my family again. The lawyer also mentioned it was possible to take legal actions such as demanding compensation, but out of compassion or simply feeling sorry for Robert, I shook my head and said I wouldn't seek compensation if Robert promised to stay away. The next day, Robert showed up at the house again, pleading, "Please forgive me." I didn't even open the front door and told him bluntly, "You will receive a letter from the lawyer soon. Please read it carefully, and if you cannot comply with what is written, further action will be taken."
What? What? A lawyer? Please stop. I'm begging you.
Then please read the letter carefully and understand that no amount of apology will change anything. Thank you for our long marriage. There's nothing more to say from me. Having said that I had nothing more to say, I left Robert standing forlornly at the front door, feeling his sorrowful presence behind me, and I headed to the salon to prepare for work. 1 week later, Wendy, who had been helping out, handed me a letter. It was from the lawyer and had arrived in the post. Upon reading it, I learned that Robert had kept his promise and signed the divorce papers with the lawyer present. Thank you so much for everything. Thanks to you, I feel like I can move forward.
No problem at all. We've just done our job. Regarding the future, if Robert attempts to approach your home or family again, please notify me and the police.
I expressed my heartfelt gratitude to the lawyer over the phone. Then, I faintly heard the lawyer chuckle over the phone. Seeing my reflection in the mirror hanging on the wall, I suddenly felt embarrassed about what I was doing at the front door. I then told the lawyer that I would submit the divorce papers enclosed in the letter later, and I ended the call with a brief expression of gratitude and farewell. With this, my long marriage life with Robert finally came to an end. After divorcing Robert, I had a discussion with my ex-mother-in-law, Catherine, and proposed living together if she was willing, but she turned it down.
I appreciate your offer, but I shouldn't cause any more trouble for you, Shelley. I'll manage on my own, and I still have the money my husband left for me, so I'll probably move into a care home or something.
But I think Wendy and Jessica will miss you.
To tell you the truth, I'd been looking for a good care home for a while. I found a nice place recently, and I've started the paperwork. So I'm sorry. Please visit me whenever you want to see me.
Understanding that Catherine's decision was firm and further persuasion would not change her mind, I promised to visit the care home with my family and protect the beauty salon I took from her for the rest of my life. On the day Catherine moved in, I, along with Wendy and Jessica, helped carry her belongings into the care home. We spent some time chatting in her room, which will be a new place she will live for the future.
Grandma, even though we live far away, don't forget about Jessica.
Of course, I won't forget. So Jessica, don't forget about Grandma either, and come visit with your mom anytime.
While listening to Jessica and Catherine's conversation nearby, Wendy and I are organizing the items we brought from home onto the shelves. I feel a bit sad thinking that I won't be able to see this scene for a while, but I believe this was the right choice for us. I will continue cutting clients' hair at the salon, offering them a new look with a beautiful hairstyle, while Catherine will have a new life at a new location. Even though our paths diverge, I feel motivated knowing we're heading towards the same destination. I'm sure Catherine will support me. I'll visit this place again with Wendy and Jessica when we have time. So let's spend the remaining time chatting about trivial things and creating enjoyable memories together until the end. Even though we'll be apart, I want us to continue making memories as a family. Catherine, we'll come to see you again soon.